Is my gavel's gone? Gavel's gone.
Yeah, wasn't here because I've been.
It's not a little bit. Good to go.
We're good to go.
Lovely, thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's 6 p.m. on Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025, and we'll call this session of West Hants Regional Municipality Council to order. Clerk Snare, we do have two regrets this evening, Councillor Scott McLean and Councillors John Smith. Noting that we do have quorum, Council, so we will continue. We are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. These lands are governed by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. We're all treated people and have responsibilities to each other in this land. We'd like to also recognize that West Hants Regional Municipality at African Nova Scotians are a distinct peoples whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We are streaming live this evening, everybody, on YouTube. After the meeting, the meeting video stays up, so we will ask people to not record on their phones and respect to other people in the audience as well. With that said, me and my co-chair here are committed to ensuring our meetings stay respectful and productive. So anybody who is speaking this night, or a presenter, or anybody who wishes to speak on any matter, we ask you to keep all your comments respectful and to the point, and let's have a good, productive meeting. In case of a fire alarm, we have two exits at either side of the room here. Please make your way out in an orderly fashion. To my left, your right, down to the parking station, which is our muster station. I'll be the last one in the building. Make sure everybody's out okay and be safe. All right, with that, Council, are there any more announcements? Councillor Whedon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just want to make an announcement about what a successful Hants County exhibition we had, 260 years. It was the biggest and the best ever. And I want to thank Sherry Donovan, the exhibition manager, and all of her crew, staff, volunteers, of course, the sponsors, the exhibitors, and the fans. For those of you that made it there, I hope you enjoyed it. And it'll be, what is it now, 50 more weeks before we go again. So hope to see you next year. Thanks.
Well said, like a true announcer. You did a great job all weekend as well. Councillor Bonnie Smith.
Thanks. Just wanted to let you know the Windsor Township Business Association is hosting a business and community social this Friday, September 26th. This event is open to everyone. It's in the backyard of the August House at 494 King Street from 5 p.m. till 8 p.m. It's a free event that's open to all with snacks, barbecue, and beverages included.
Fantastic. Councillor Leary Pinch.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make everybody aware of the upcoming jam session at the Southwest Hants Fire Hall on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. And the one person you forgot to thank, Paul, was yourself, because I would say that you spent many hours there announcing over the past couple of weekends. So I'm sure they appreciate you and your many years of service too. So thank you for that.
Accolades all around. All right, seeing no other lights on for announcements, we'll get to the agenda, the approval of the agenda and the dashboard. Are there any questions on dashboard at this point, Council? Seeing nothing, we have two changes on the agenda, nothing added, nothing subtracted, but I would like to move up item 16F, Windsor Waste Treatment Plant Expansion Grid Application, and make that the new 9D. And then I'd like to move up 13B, Part I, under Planning Heritage Advisory Committee excerpts, Development Agreement PID 45053220 King Street. And we'll move that item up to it'll be the new 9E. Councillor Bob Morton.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Under new business 16A, the Avenue file, would like to just pull that for now, and I will bring that back at committee of the whole or council.
Okay. And seeing no more lights, those changes aren't substantive by any means, so we'll approve the agenda as noted, and with those couple of changes there, Council. At this point, are there any declarations of conflict of interest? All right, perfect. We have 3 sets of meeting minutes to approve. Meeting minutes from July 22nd, 2025, July 22nd, 2025, public hearing minutes, Bent Ridge Geodomes Development Agreement, and August 8th, 2025, special council minutes. Yeah, they were circulated in the package. If there's no corrections or anything needed to change, we will have those approved as circulated. All right, perfect. Next up is public hearings. We have one public hearing this evening, Bear Lake Wind Farm Development Agreement. Can I have a motion, council, to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Bob Moore and seconded by Councillor Leary Pinch. All those in favor, we're going to do a show of hands this evening. We're on the clicker system. So all those in favor signify by hands up. Opposed, motion's passed unanimous. Thank you very much. So public hearings for all planning matters are required by Part 8 of the Municipal Government Act. The public hearing is hosted by council and allows members of the public to ask questions or raise concerns to planning staff or the applicant. Once the public hearing is complete, the council meeting will resume and the council will then debate and ask questions on their end. With that, Manager Fougier, Bear Lake Wind Farm Development Agreement.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a little bit of an overview of how the night will go. I have a quick presentation just on the kind of overview of the application and the development agreement. And then we have some members of the applicant team here to provide a presentation and to answer any questions that the public and or council may have for them. So, as mentioned, this development agreement is for the Bear Lake Wind Farm project. A completed application was received on April 28th, 2025 from Bear Lake Wind Limited. And this application is to permit 7 turbines within the West Hants Regional Municipality. And the application for this development agreement was previously submitted under previous MPS policy. And withdrawn, and the applicants resubmitted with a new application with the revised development concept to be considered under our new MPS policy. So in December 2023, this project received environmental assessment approval from the province, and amendments were approved by the province again in April 2025 with the revised development concept. And another important note here is that in January 2025, the West Hants Municipal Planning Strategy, or MPS, policy was amended with new requirements for large wind turbine development, and this was based on new requirements from the province. So a little bit more about the site. So the proposed development falls within the resource designation, and the entire project area is within the general resource zone, which prioritizes resource uses and allows some rural residential and commercial uses. And you can see that the majority of the surrounding area is zoned and designated the same general resource. So in terms of community and stakeholder feedback on the project, there was a public information meeting hosted on May 21st, 2025, and 31 members of the public were in attendance, and several spoke at that meeting and asked questions and provided some comments. Staff also received emails from several individuals during the public comment period, all of which are included in the staff report. And some of the major topics that were discussed include concerns about the number of wind farms in the area, environmental concerns, and concerns around fire suppression, and support for the project noted tax revenue, community benefits, and secondary access to Chalet Hamlet being provided by the development. So a development agreement is a legal contract between the municipality and a property owner to permit a use that is not permitted as of right in the underlying zone and the land use bylaw. And the resource designation and general resource zone permit large-scale wind turbines by development agreement. And the designation and zone also prioritizes resource development. So for a little bit more project details, the development agreement proposes 7 turbines proposed within WHRM and includes 4 alternate locations within that, but overall for a maximum of 7 turbines with the development. Each turbine will have an 8 megawatt capacity and stand about 211 meters high. And additional turbines are considered in Chester and Halifax Regional Municipality. So the proposed development agreement details a number of requirements, including the numbers of wind turbines permitted being 7, the setbacks, which are property line setbacks equal to 1.1 times the height of a turbine, 550 meters from any turbine to any woods camp, and 4 times the height of a turbine or distance required to meet shadow, flicker, and noise levels to any dwellings surrounding the development. Fire safety measures are also included in the development agreement, which include passive fire suppression systems and commitment to work with the local fire chief during the construction of the wind farm. Primary access from Highway 14, as well as emergency access or egress to be provided through Chalet Hamlet. A stormwater management plan is required through the development agreement prior to any permits being issued. And there's also requirements in the development agreement for a decommissioning fund to be set up. So in terms of substantive matters listed in the DA, those include the uses permitted on the property, including the maximum number of turbines, the minimum setback requirements for a stormwater management plan, and secondary emergency access requirements. So policy 424-4 in the West Hants municipal planning strategy enables council to consider the installation of large wind turbines or wind farms by development agreement only. And for general policy 1631 states general criteria for all development agreements to be considered under, and both policies have been considered to be met. So at the July Planning Advisory Committee meeting, the committee recommended in favor of the application, but also requested council take additional factors into account in considering the file. And at council first reading, also in July of this year, after a thorough discussion, council amended the recommendation to include in the development agreement the requirement to gate the egress road to Chalet Hamlet. And this has been carried forward in the recommendation for consideration tonight. So in terms of process, we have gone through the process at the beginning of this chart, and we are now at the public hearing and second reading phase. And following the decision made in council tonight, a notice will be put in the paper, followed by a 14-day appeal period. And with that, I will pass it over to our applicants. They have a presentation to provide, which I believe Vanessa will be sharing for us.
Thanks, Planner Fougere, Mayor, councillors, staff, and members of the public. Thanks for welcoming us into the chamber again, and congratulations on a very successful exhibition this year. We're here obviously on behalf of Member 2 and Everwind to discuss the Bear Lake application this evening. And I'll do some hand gestures to go to the next slide, if that's all right. My name is Mark Stewart. I'm the Director of Engagement with Everwind. I have been involved in this project since 2023. So I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, around the table, and throughout the community. I grew up in rural Nova Scotia and really had the opportunity to come back with my family after living most of my adult life away because of projects like this. And I think that's a key component of kind of this project and some of the other projects that we're working on in Nova Scotia is the opportunities it creates, obviously for the municipality, for communities, but also for individuals. So we're going to highlight some of those kind of aspects tonight as we move through this, but we will be, I will be supported by a team tonight. Obviously, you have Rebecca Crump, who will introduce herself shortly, as well as Jeff Bonazza and Brendan Chard seated behind me, as well as Kelsey McNeil from Member 2 tonight. But I think to put it in context, we're going to hand over to Chief Terry to summarize what this project means for Member 2. So hopefully we got some sound with this one and we can, yeah.
we'll continue, Vanessa, if you can.
Wade, good evening. Thank you, Mayor Zabian, the council, and the community members of West Hants who are in attendance at this meeting tonight. While I wish I could be with you in person, I appreciate the opportunity to share a few words about a project that's deeply meaningful to us in Member 2 and to the broader movement toward a cleaner, more sustainable future in Mi'kma'ki. My name is Chief Terry Paul, and my community of Member 2 is located in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality. Member 2 is home to roughly 1,800 people, both on and off the reserve. We are one of 5 Mi'kmaq communities in Cape Breton Island. Our development corporation was established in 1989 as a way to serve the needs of our people and build strong business partnerships. The people of Member 2, I feel, are our greatest asset. We work hard to create revenue in a range of ways to reinvest and create opportunity for our community. I've had the privilege of serving as elected chief of Member 2 for the past 40 years. Over those 4 decades, our community has transformed from a place facing deep economic hardships to one that is growing, thriving, and helping lead change, not just for ourselves, but for others across Mi'kma'ki. That transformation didn't happen overnight. It came from partnerships, a clear vision, and a determination to take our future into our own hands. The same spirit of vision and leadership is what drives our partnership with Everwind and the development of the Bear Lake Wind Project. This wind farm will generate up to 89 megawatts of clean, renewable energy, enough to help power Canada's first industrial-scale green hydrogen and ammonia facility in Point Tupper in Okanagan. It's an essential step in decarbonizing heavy industry, replacing fossil fuels, and confronting the climate crisis with actionable solutions. This project is not just about renewable energy. It's about leadership in shaping the future of energy in this province. Mi'kmaq communities have been stewards of these lands and waters for thousands of years. And today, we're using that deep-rooted respect for the environment to guide how we develop projects like Bear Lake responsibly, carefully, and in collaboration with our neighbors. We know that development must be thoughtful. That's why the Bear Lake Wind Project has been redesigned with a strong environmental lens, grounded in community feedback, science, and traditional knowledge. Everwind and Member 2 are committed to minimizing impacts on local ecosystems, protecting wildlife, and ensuring our projects leave the land as strong as we found it, if not stronger. The redesigned layout we are presenting today reflects feedback from the community and council, with fewer turbines, fewer roads, and less land being used. These changes reduce the project's footprint and ecological impact, helping ensure the Bear Lake Wind Project moves forward with care and respect for the land. This is about building economic opportunity, not just for Member 2 or a few municipalities, but for all of Mi'kma'ki. It's about creating good-paying jobs, opening new doors for young people, and ensuring that the prosperity generated by clean energy reaches every corner of this province. I know that big change can be daunting, but as leaders, it's our responsibility to prepare our communities, not just for today, but for the future. Clean energy and green fuels are not far off concepts. They are here, happening now, and Nova Scotia has a chance to lead. The Bear Lake Wind Farm is one step in that direction. We don't take this work lightly. It's our responsibility to our ancestors, to our youth, and to the generations still to come, to walk this path with intention, care, and determination. We believe the Bear Lake Wind Farm can be part of that legacy. This project is also a reminder that we don't have to choose between economic growth and environmental responsibility. We can and must do both. By taking a balanced and community-focused approach, we can deliver long-term value for the people of West Hants and all those living in Mi'kma'ki. While I couldn't be here in person tonight, I encourage you to speak with our team from Member 2 and Everwind, who are present to answer your questions. We are here to listen, to learn, and to work together. Well, all you, thank you.
Thanks. Next slide, please. So how do we get here? I think this evening we'll provide a recap of how we got to this point, but focus more on some of the topics that have come up over the development application process. So as you can see on your screen here, this process started in 2023 with the initial open houses, the registration and approval of the environmental assessment, and the draft community benefits agreement. And since that time, we have confirmed that we have successfully approved the development agreement in Chester, as well as the permit in HRM, while adhering to the initial commitments through the municipality and the benefits fund. So I'm going to hand over to Rebecca, who's going to walk through just some of the changes in a bit more detail.
I'll introduce myself first. I'm Rebecca Crump. I'm head of renewables for Everwind Fuels. I've been involved with this project specifically since about mid-2023 when I was a consultant for Everwind. Late last year, Everwind asked me to come on board to lead the development, construction, and ultimately operations of their wind portfolio. I have 19 years of renewable energy experience and bring all those lessons learned to this project here in West Hants. So what we're here today to discuss, which we discussed previously at the PACAC, is just to present our final layout and discuss some of the changes that we've made through this process, but through these meetings and through our engagements outside of council chambers. We'll go to the next slide. I like to talk to a map. So everybody has a map in front of them. And this may be a recap for some and new for others. The Bear Lake project will have 11 turbines total. When we first presented the project, it was 15 turbines. Like was just presented, 7 of those turbines are in West Hants. If you look at your map, you'll see a few more turbines. The turbines in red are alternate positions, which we do not anticipate utilizing. There will only be 7 in West Hants total. We do permit alternate locations in case we encounter, in the rare case we encounter a constructability issue. We've eliminated considerable access roads. You'll see the red dotted lines on, I think it's shown on the handout map. The red dotted lines are roads that we do not anticipate constructing. They are for alternate turbine positions only. And how we were able to do this is our original application, we were utilizing a 5.9 megawatt wind turbine. You know, we continued to hear that there was concern about just the number of turbines in West Hants. So through our engagement with multiple turbine vendors, we were able to look and have now selected an 8 megawatt turbine. It sounds a lot larger, but the actual hub height is lower than what we previously were anticipated using, but the blades are a bit longer. So the total height is about 4.5 meters from our original application. And as Carrie said in her presentation, the total height right to the blade tip, when the blade standing right up in the air, is 211 meters high. I think we can move to the next slide. So this is just a recap. I like talking about the wind farm when we're looking at our map. And this is just really highlights the reduction of physical footprint and environmental impact associated with that, the removal of additional roads, reducing impacts to wetlands, water courses, and whatnot. I think this could be a repeat for most people have seen this slide before, so we can move on to the next slide. And this is just the facts of the project. So 7 turbines in West Hants. The nameplate capacity of the wind park will be 88 megawatts, 8 megawatt turbines. This outlines the hub height and rotor diameter. And 5 wind turbines are planned to be on Crown land out of the total project, and 6 on private land. I think we can move to the next slide.
Again, this one is a recap, but I think it's worth just highlighting what we were able to maintain with the changes. The key one at the top there is the municipal tax revenue associated with the project is consistent with what was previously presented, as well as the jobs and the voluntary community benefit funds. So with that, we have included the $90,000, which we'll talk to in a bit more detail in terms of our community benefits agreement on a future slide, but that is consistent with what was previously discussed, as well as the scholarships associated with the site. We have stood up the Community Liaison Committee, the CLC, and initiated the process with the CLC of addressing some of the concerns that were raised and focusing on how we can address them with solutions. So when we get into some of the topics that we wanted to highlight tonight, they have been discussed with our CLC through some of our initial meetings as well. Go to the next slide. Again, I won't talk in depth about the job creation, but I do think it is, again, worth highlighting to this group because it is significant, and you're likely seeing it or have seen it throughout the region with activity with Benjamin Mills project and some of the other sites locally throughout the summer. But we are talking about direct jobs associated with the project, indirect and induced. And I think that's something that we're seeing across Nova Scotia at the moment with a number of projects in development. So there's 5 in construction this summer. And it is significant numbers through construction, and the operation term for these sites is 35 years. So it is generational employment for people there. And as I mentioned, there will be scholarships and bursaries associated with this project to train local people, because they are the people that are going to be turning up to the operation and maintenance building every day to work on site. To the next slide, thanks. So similar to what Planner Fougere highlighted in her report is that we have met or completed the criteria associated with the West Hants Municipal Planning Strategy. And if we think about the first one being the environmental assessment that was completed in December 2023. the setbacks, which include physical distance, sound, so in terms of 40 dBA, as well as shadow flicker, those have been completed, met, or exceeded. And in particular, just highlighting that the province, obviously, as you guys are all aware, has changed has established provincial setbacks, and we are exceeding those with at least a minimum of 1,000 meters from dwellings. Next slide, please. Thanks. And then additionally, in terms of our safe roadway access, we have met with the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, and that is included within your package this evening. And then any other matters are included in the development agreement, which I think we'll touch on in a few of these kind of additional areas that we wanted to talk about this evening. Next slide, please.
So we made a commitment early on, and we are standing by that commitment to utilize ADLS, and ADLS stands for Aircraft Detection Lighting System. So we're doing this voluntarily. I'm a rural resident and I value my dark sky. And, that's one thing that we hear about operational wind farms is the red blinking lights. So this project will have, we have a dark sky policy. The skies will be dark, and we utilize a radar-based system where lights will only come on when an aircraft, a small plane, big airplanes up in the sky wouldn't trigger the system, but when a small aircraft is flying within 3 nautical miles of the wind farm at an elevation of 2,000 feet. So the lights, you'll have a dark sky. When a small plane travels over the wind farm, you'll start to see lights coming on. And as they pass over the wind farm or away from the wind farm, the lights then turn off. So we're committed to using this technology, and it is subject to Transport Canada approval, but Transport Canada has approved these systems in multiple jurisdictions across Canada. So we're confident we can get it approved here in Nova Scotia.
Next slide, thanks. So some of the key areas or points that have come up through the development application that we just really wanted to highlight through our presentation are matters that either came up in the PAC hack or first reading. The first one being the gated emergency access. One of the key commitments that we made from the onset to the Shelley Hamlet community was a secondary access and egress route to that. And we recognize that, there's concern that has been raised in the community, and we're empathetic to both sides of that. And I guess our main point that we want to ensure clarity on is that everyone's open to gating or not gating the access route based on the guidance from council and the community, to just ensure that we're able to maintain emergency access while reducing unintended use of the road and increased traffic. This is a matter that we discussed at length in the Community Liaison Committee meeting last week, as well as one that we held 3 months ago. And there are some creative solutions that have come up. So the example on the screen here is one that is used in Tantallon. It was put in place following the fires in Tantallon, and is based on a pin system. So that pin can be removed. It's not locked and can be opened at any time due to an emergency as an option of what could be utilized in this case. But essentially our position on it is we're open to working with the community and council and being guided by your decisions on that, and we're supportive of whatever that may be. Next slide, please. In terms of fire, obviously, as a resident of Nova Scotia this summer, and looking around the table, I think we can all attest to the fact that fire has been top of mind. Obviously, it's been a very dry, very hot summer, and having clear and comprehensive fire management plans in place is critical. And that's something that we fully commit to as an operator of our site, and we'll have as part of our management plans. When we look at different systems that can be employed, there is an active fire suppression system that can be utilized. We have done our due diligence on that, as have many of the other sites throughout Nova Scotia. And we've consulted with the fire chief and industry experts, and it is not the precedent that the industry has set. It's not consistent with the sites that are around here. And frankly, it's not the best value for money in terms of fire prevention. There are much more effective measures, including like a really broad fire management plan, because the probability that a fire will occur on site, the highest probability is not in the turbine nacelle or in the turbine where the suppression system is. It is in the blades, or it's in other locations throughout the site. So our perspective, and we've talked to our insurers and they align with us, is that your best management is to work on really comprehensive site fire management plans for the site. And you'll see that with the sites that operated throughout the summer, like Wedgeport, that had a team on staff through fire season. So that's where our focus is. And we believe that that will provide the best protection. And we have talked with the fire chief, and having access to some of the areas that the roads will put in place will enhance their ability. And having a system in place in the turbine will not actually change their response to a fire. Do you want to ask?
Just have one technical thing to add. So we do plan on utilizing a condition monitoring system, which is above industry standard from an operational perspective, that would flag, that would be preemptive in flagging problems to the operator, that a problem in the turbine that could possibly lead to a fire. So it's more preventative, a preventative system, as opposed to, a system of a fire, a suppression system.
Thanks. So again, our focus is prevention. So preventing fires on site, both within the turbine, but throughout the site. Next slide, please. There has been quite a number of conversations around the allocation of vibrancy funds, and I thought it'd be worth just clarifying a few points on our community benefits agreement. So our community benefits agreement encompasses a number of components, including local employment opportunities, local procurement opportunities, which have all been included in our packages that were sent out for contractors. In addition to the CBA is a community benefits fund. And so the project established that fund of $90,000 annually. That is a fixed amount. So that's not tied to our production or the operation of the site. It is a fixed amount annually. And currently it's broken down into two payments, a proximity payment as well as a vibrancy fund. And the intention is that the CLC will be the group that determines the allocation of the vibrancy fund into the community. And then you can see the additional benefits listed there at the bottom. And the key kind of component is that the CBA is a binding agreement and a condition of the development application. Next slide, please. The final one that we just wanted to really highlight on is blasting and the importance of a blasting plan, which is a condition of the environmental assessment. So it's 5.5 in the EA that was approved. And what it entails is really ensuring that any groundwater wells within 800 meters of blasting activities will be monitored in accordance with the Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change procedures. And that includes a pre-blast survey in that area. And that those pre-blast groundwater is monitoring that well prior to a blast. And then if demonstrable changes in groundwater quantity or quality to a well are detected due to the project activities, an alternative water supply of equal or better quantity and quality than that impacted will be provided by will be provided to the landowner. So that it's really clear that that compensation would be done by us if there was an impact to that well, and they will be monitored beforehand. Because I know there have been a number of questions and raised in this forum. So I just wanted to clarify that. Next slide, please. This is the final one here. And so to summarize, we feel like we have over the since 2023 have really heard from the community on what would improve this project. And to the best of our ability, we've tried to implement change to the layout, to the structure of the site, into the process. So it includes fewer turbines in West Hants. It does include reduced roads and infrastructure on that land, and reduced environmental impacts while maintaining the benefits that we discussed right from the start. So with that, we would like to open it up to any questions that you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, folks. I think council will open it up to the public first, and then I'll get back to you. So anybody in the public who wishes to ask a question or let council hear your thoughts on the application, please come up. We'll do it one by one. We'll get you to click the mic as you do come up. Just before somebody does come up, you're probably wondering why RCMP are in here. It's not for this file. They are the next item on the agenda, so we'll lighten the mood of the room right now before we get into the comments. Anybody wishes to come up, come on up, and we'll start the discussion. There has to be somebody. Going once. Come on up, Karen. If we can just get you to state your name, Karen, just for the record. If you can just click your mic there, sorry, and try to speak right into the mic. If you can just bring it towards you, Karen, there a bit. Thank you.
My name's Karen Wallace. Chief Terry Paul, are you still there?
I think it was a video, Karen.
Oh, was it?
It was a video, yeah.
They're the representative from member two here?
Yes. I think it's Kelsey back here. If you can just speak into the mic, Karen. I know it's hard to not keep, she doesn't mean to hold her back to you, just anybody at home, we just need the voice recorded there.
I guess my
If you can just speak right into the mic, just look at me, it's okay. She knows
Okay.
you're not doing it on purpose.
my concern is well, the world has changed a lot in the last 2 years, and from the outset and still to now, I see this as a Canadian welfare for American billionaires. And I would like to ask Chief Paul if he is wanting to do something for the community or prepare the community for the future, then if we're building wind energy, it should be for us. We've got 2 wind projects on the go right now. Hants County, other than dollars being thrown at us, we do not benefit from that. We provide other communities with bragging rights about their green energy, but we are not seeing it in our own bills or anything at all. And the prices, as we know, are going up. It keeps going up because of worldwide industries and AI industries that we're building, destroying our backyards for. That's one point I'd like to make. And the other one, throughout this whole process, I've come to quite a few meetings in the last few years. What saddens me the most is the loss of democracy. I truly feel that. You say the words amend it or that we consult it, but I really think that we were dictated. Our environmental levels were dictated. And I call Tim Houston Mega Maple. And I guess that's all I have to say on that. I feel like I'm like fighting a losing battle. And you have to come to the point to accept the things that you cannot change. That's all I have
We-
to say.
We appreciate it, Karen. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? If you can just state your name for the record, Mr. Hines, just so we have it there on record.
Colin Hines. I have a question, and this is maybe it's an economic thing that maybe nobody in this room can answer, but I noticed that Everwind and their company seems to be very good at getting government money, 100 and I think it was 110 million a federal loan application or loan, guaranteed loan or interest-free loan. They got a lot of money for the tugs in Point Tupper. If you read the news these days, when it talks about green hydrogen, green ammonia being sold to Germany, from my perspective, that doesn't look all that promising at this point in time, that apparently Germany is going to be going out and the European Union is going to be going out for tenders, people to bid on that part. And we heard earlier in the slides that one of the main reasons for this wind farm is to generate power for the green hydrogen, green ammonia plant. My question is there any contingency or what happens to this project if, in fact, that market for the green hydrogen from Point Tupper is not as rosy as what we've been told? What does this turbine project go down the tubes? Is it going to go? Are we going to be looking at Nova Scotia Power taking it over? There's been a couple other instances in Nova Scotia where wind farms have gone bankrupt and they've ended up taking it over. So I'm just, from the economic point of view, I wonder if anybody can maybe speak to that.
You can, Rebecca there.
Yes. So just 2 points I'll respond on. And so the first one is we received an investment loan from Export Development Canada. It is not interest-free. It is interest-bearing. And I want to reiterate that this is a grid-connected project. So it is not, we're negotiating a power purchase agreement with Nova Scotia Power. We have, that's entrenched in legislation, the Bear Lake PPA dollar figure, the maximum amount of what our power purchase agreement can be. And the electrons will be flowing into the grid, and this wind farm is not contingent on the hydrogen facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? Coming up, we'll get you to state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Angela Korscadden. I have property on Armstrong Lake West Road in Chalet Hamlet. Hello. I just wanted to say or talk about the development agreement in relation to the closed gate or a locked gate. When Everwind expressed a willingness to create a secondary egress for my community, I was very relieved. The fires in Hammonds Plains in 2023 very much opened my eyes to what a precarious situation our community faces in case of any danger or a fire, or, well, when the floods happened as well in 2023, our road was cut off. We had a sorry, don't like talking. We had a blizzard in the winter of 2022, and trees came down and cut off our power line and knocked power onto the road. So we were without access. The plows couldn't come through until the power situation was addressed. The power situation couldn't get addressed until we had the roads plowed. It was a bit of a stalemate, and we had no options. So we had people that were on the inside of the hamlet that didn't have option to get out. So again, having an option, a secondary egress, makes me feel better about being in my community, makes me feel better about the longevity of the community and being able to exit safely. I'm just wondering if there is willingness to not have a locked gate, because a locked gate, in my opinion, is not the safest of options. There are plenty of reasons pro and con. I just, especially taking a look at this map and taking a look at the location, when they talk about unintended use of the roads by putting in a gate, well, does that mean that the rest of the footprint is going to have a gate as well at the 14, or can people come in from the 14 and go all the way through? I don't know. So these are questions that I wanted to have answered. If there's still going to be open access from the 14 all the way through, it doesn't make sense to close it from the Armstrong Lake West side. So again, I'm not explaining myself very well, other than to say it is an uncomfortable feeling not to have options for your safety in the face of flood, fire, evacuation. And I'm hoping that there's a better solution that can be found. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? Anybody at all? No. How are you?
My name is Nancy Durnford. I live on Armstrong Lake West Road. I'm sorry, I agree with the gate because where I live, dumping, illegal dumping is out of this world. And if there's no gate on that road, that's all that's going to be is a big dumping ground. And I don't know how you'll stop it unless you have somebody there 24/7. There are now cameras on a shortcut to prevent dumping. We see people dumping all the time, try to stop them. But I mean, we can't even control the dumping in our own garbage cans at the end of the road on the 14. And if you leave that open, the ATVs are just going to tear it up. And that's what they'll do. So I do think that it does. And I'm not in the hamlet, but I just think that if you leave a gate, if you take off a gate there, it will just become a huge dumping ground. Now, whether you make it with a keypad to put a peg in it, that's not going to work because the ATVers will just come through, pull that out, and off they'll go. But a keypad made available to the people in the hamlet, I think that's the solution. It's an easy one. The only people that will get to use it are the people that should be there. I'm still against the wind farm because I'm worried because of where I live when they start blasting. Yes, you're going to check wells, but I'm concerned about the lakes and the rivers. Not that there are any rivers right now because we are so dry out there, but I am concerned about that. And it will affect my livelihood because, not my livelihood, but my lifestyle. If I can't use my lake and I can't go on my property because I don't know what I'm going to run into unless I've got my little Geiger counter going there. So I have issues with a wind farm here that's going power all the way into Cape Breton. I just don't see the need. Yes, West Hants is windy. Well, there's lots of windy places in Nova Scotia. And I would like to see each and every one of you vote against this. We all know the province is going to override it. Put it in their hands. Takes it out of your problem and it becomes their problem. And that's what you need to do tonight, is to vote against it.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? You know the drill, Mr. Marriott.
Hello, good evening. My name is Seamus Marriott. I live in Upper Vaughan. I'd like to just go back to the previous open meeting. I had a number of questions that evening. A number of promises were made to get back to me. I received one email which conflicted with about core sample distances, and it conflicted with the information that was provided on the way out the door. Visual imaging, things about water and everything else, no one ever got back to me. Just still waiting. So open, transparent communication, not so much on this round. I'm happy to hear, I'd like to speak about three different things: fire suppression, property devaluation, speculation and risk. I'm happy to hear about the efforts to prevent fires. Lightning strikes to wind turbines are not uncommon. According to the industry portal, Wind Branch, each wind turbine is struck by lightning 0.6 to 1 time a year on average. Usually the rotor blade, as you guys had spoke about. The risk is even higher
to multi-megawatt turbines. These are 8-megawatt turbines, multi-megawatt turbines. Studies show that these are exposed to direct lightning strikes at least 10 times a year. In addition, wind turbine fires are a reality in wind farms worldwide and represent severe damage to the turbine and surrounding environment. Fire is the second most common accident caused in terms of incidents found. And not all fires are reported, but fires are the second most incident. Blade failure is number one. Global statistics, and once again, not all fires are reported. Global statistics show that from 2000 to March 21, 2023, there were 459 wind turbine fires with total losses. That's globally. That's approximately 20 a year. Although the overall number may seem low, and proponents downplay the risks, the consequences should a fire occur can be catastrophic. Think about West Dalhousie, 8,400 plus hectares. A fire of that magnitude igniting in a wind turbine in Upper Vaughan would encompass an area from Chester to 3 Mile Plains. And that's just going north and south. I haven't gone east and west. The impact of climate change and the extreme dry conditions we have experienced this summer only adds to that level of risk. The Professional Firefighters Association of Nova Scotia have said in Halifax, the union president, the professional firefighters have had no official or training in fighting forest fires. He's made that public statement. So if the professionals have had no training, have the volunteers? Because that's what we would be depending on. LPS systems, though important, that's lightning protection systems, though important, have been known to fail. Having a fire suppression system within the turbine is mandatory in Ontario and should be in Bear Lake. Cutting down trees and scrubbing more land around the base of the turbine should not be an alternative to fire prevention. I'm happy to hear that you have people on site, but you put a lightning bolt into the nacelle of a turbine, I'm guaranteed you're going to have a fire if that lightning suppression fails. In the insurance industry, increased risk means increased premiums for property owners. 700-foot turbines attract over 10 lightning strikes a year. Don't you think that's going to be an increased risk for property owners as far as insurance goes? Who's going to pay those increased premiums? Is that on the property owners at no fault of their own? As the renewable energy sector continues to expand, so too must our commitment to ensuring the safety and integrity of wind turbine installations. By prioritizing fire awareness training and adopting proactive safety measures like fire suppression, the more we can do, the better off we'll be. We can minimize the risk of future incidents and protect both people and the environment. It is essential that the development agreement, if it's approved, fire suppression systems must be included. I'd like to move on to property devaluation. We've talked a great deal about this. The proponents tell us there is no property devaluation. Oh yeah, there is some, but it comes back in 3 to 5 years. Well, a very comprehensive study in 2024, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of used data from 3 million home sales and their proximity to 60,000 wind turbines. Notably, this study is the first of its kind to take into account not just the proximity of the homes to the turbines, but whether the turbines were actually within sight of their homes. The study shows that houses within 1.2 miles, or this is an American study, but within 1.2 miles, which is 2 kilometers of the turbine, saw their value significantly affected by up to 8%. Beyond 1.2 miles, the impact tallied off to about 1% devaluation for houses 10 kilometers away. Now, interestingly enough, the researchers also noted that there were less than 250,000 homes all across the United States that sat within a 4-kilometer radius of a windmill. Guess their setback differences might be a little different than what we're looking at. Anyway, getting back to the devaluation. An 8% devaluation on one's property through no fault of the owner is a sizable loss should they decide to sell in the next 3 to 5 years. Because that's what the study said. You're right, the property values do come back, but it could take 3 to 5 years. That's $40,000 on a $500,000 property. That's $50,000 on a $600,000 property. If you have a nice lakefront home that's selling for $900,000 or somewhere in that vicinity, that's a considerable hit through no fault of your own. To protect the property owners and their property who live within 2 to 5 kilometers of a wind turbine or homeowners with direct sight lines to turbines, I would like to propose that a protection of property fund be included in the development agreement. The establishment of a $750,000 fund paid by the proponents, held by the municipality, and adjudicated by a 3-person panel. Someone from council, maybe the local councilor, maybe the local councilor for our district, a CLC member, and a local realtor. Property owners selling and impacted by the devaluation of their property due to the proximity of the Bear Lake project through no fault of their own could make application to this tribunal and have their case reviewed. And if it's found that their property was devalued, then they could access some of this money. Any funds remaining at the end of that 5 years would be paid back to the proponents, just trying to protect the property owners. I think it's something that we should look at and study. My fine point is speculation and risk. We have been told, even by Chief Paul this evening, repeatedly that by the proponents that green energy is Nova Scotia's future and that Bear Lake is an essential piece of that equation. As reported by the Halifax Examiner in July of 2025, Everwind Fuels has not made a final investment decision on its green hydrogen project in Nova Scotia and has yet to lay a single brick on a green hydrogen plant at its Point Tupper fossil fuel shipping and storage facility. So no, Everwind is not producing any green hydrogen. In June of 2024, the vice president sitting here behind me told the Halifax Examiner, the project will only be built and constructed if we have secured offtake agreements that will allow us to secure the financing to construct the facility. So the construction of the wind won't commence until we have hit those milestones. No offtake agreements have been signed. It also appears that Renewable Energy Systems, RES, is no longer a development partner with the Everwind Fuels on the Bear Lake project, as was announced in July 23 and touted to council here on numerous times as the experts in turbine construction. This company has stepped back from this project. On the patriotic side of the equation, let's remember, Everwind's roots are not in Nova Scotia. Everwind Fuels is a subsidiary of 3 US companies that share an address in New York. The owner of that company has a residence in New York and a residence in Houston, Texas. So all of this is simply speculation. The proponents are asking council to approve a development agreement allowing the construction of a wind farm that would decimate acres of forest, eliminate over 70 wetlands, destroy a vast amount of wildlife habitat, increase the risk of wildfires, and possibly the cost of home insurance, depreciate the value of local properties, and much more, all on speculation. Should the green hydrogen all be hype, then what is plan B for Bear Lake? Is it to sell to Nova Scotia Power? Again, there are no agreements. Even as of August 2025, there were no agreements. Our premier has been heralding the benefits of West Wind, an offshore wind project capable of 60 gigabytes, or 60 gigabytes, 60, that's my technology piece, 60 gigawatts of power. As a province, Nova Scotia uses 2 gigawatts of power. So there would be, if this project goes through and it seems to have legs, there'd be plenty of excess power available. No need to butcher our local environment, folks. There'd be lots of power. So this whole Bear Lake scenario is extremely speculative, and council needs to be wary of the municipality finding themselves and the taxpayers in a mess down the road. Until there's greater clarity and a financially solid business plan in place, council should delay their decision or simply vote no and not to approve the Bear Lake Development Agreement. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Coming up, Marcus. Or did you want to answer a couple of those, or? Yep.
Okay, I think both Mark and I, where's Seamus?
Over here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. So Seamus, the first thing, I remember the conversation we had last time in this room about the boreholes, the depths. We're about to undertake, I think I stated last time that we were just initiating a procurement for our construction contractor. And we're going to be undertaking a very comprehensive geotechnical program, probably initiated October 1st. And so the steps that we did a preliminary geotechnical program, which I think you were talking with Andrew about, and what depths we did boreholes to. We're going to be taking a more comprehensive program, and the follow-ups will come out of when we engage our construction contractor. And we have all your questions, and we just haven't gotten to that next step yet of pre-construction activities. So
nice to get an email to let me know that.
Yeah. Okay, well noted. Andrew's here taking notes for us.
Also promised to be visuals of the new sightings. Never got those either.
The visual.
I did send those to you.
No, never got them.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no, thank you. It's good to know that. So one of the items with respect to this wind turbine, which is unique compared to most wind turbines, is the turbine we're using. There's still a gearbox up in the nacelle. There's still, mechanics, but the transformer is actually on the ground. So a lot of the lubricants and whatnot are actually at ground level with this model of turbine. Outside of the tower in a steel, one of those green steel boxes that you'd see on the side of, a neighborhood street, a transformer. So that's located not up in the nacelle on this turbine, but on ground level. So that, further kind of fires can be created by many ways, lightning strikes on blades and whatnot. But this is, one major component of the turbine that could catch on fire. It's located on ground level, not up in the nacelle box. I'm going to just jump around to a couple of your points, and then I'll pass it over to Mark, who will address, others. The one thing that you had discussed about, so no financial investment decision has been made on the hydrogen plant. So we haven't made a final investment decision on the wind farms yet. What we're doing, we need firm contracts in place for our construction, which I'm going through right now. We're about to shortlist and enter into late stage, engineering through a comprehensive geotechnical program. Those agreements all have to be finalized, the turbine supply agreements in negotiation. And then when the plant is fully engineered, there's firm pricing on all the, major components, then that's when a financial investment decision is made. So everything is lined up, and, there's a clear plan in place for the financial investment decision on both the wind side and the hydrogen side. So as I alluded to earlier, I stated earlier, the Bear Lake project is a grid connected project with a power purchase agreement with Nova Scotia Power, entrenched in legislation. You can go up and Google, what our max PP power purchase agreement price is. And you'll see it's, in line or lower than what others are bidding and winning for the grid projects, the Green Choice and, some of the rate-based procurements. So we're providing an excellent price of power selling onto the grid, regardless of the hydrogen. So they are, like I said, electrons going onto the grid. They're not going to be power purchase agreement. We're in final negotiations of our power purchase agreement and have been, yes. So it's not executed yet, but it will be very soon.
We can't, I'm gonna get you back up
Okay.
here, Seamus, to the mic,
Okay.
because we can't have the back and forth. yeah.
Okay, so there is an agreement pending execution that's been almost fully negotiated to sell the power into the grid. Put aside the hydrogen facility. We do have that mechanism to sell power into the grid. And it'll flow through the grid regardless if the hydrogen facility is there or not. So that's an important point that a lot of people, maybe don't understand, or we're not doing a good job of explaining properly. That's probably a better way to put it. I just want to talk about, I saw the article in the Examiner with respect to RES, Seamus, and I worked for RES for a decade. When I was introduced to Everwind, I was a consultant to RES. I had already left RES and was consulting for various proponents. RES was a development partner, and the main reason RES was a development partner was Everwind had no development team early. They were building an internal development team, and Everwind was purchasing the Windy Ridge project in Colchester from RES. So that transaction took a considerable amount of time, just based on the landowner and going through CCAA. And when that transaction closed, it was a natural point. Everyone was building up their own team. I made a personal decision, because I wasn't going to work.
I'm just gonna stop you there, Rebecca.
Okay,
This is not pertinent to
It's not pertinent to the
council's decision tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
If you can just a couple of questions that he asked, so you can just stick to those and
Stick to
we'll
those,
move
yeah.
on because we can't get off track here tonight,
Yeah.
folks. We have a very long
So,
meeting and
Okay, the one
council
thing-
only weighs certain criteria for this application, and we're gonna keep it focused on that. So
I'll just say RES and Everwind have a good relationship, good working relationship to this day.
But they're not in this project.
Correct. Yes, correct. Is there anything that you wanted to?
I think just a few quick points on lightning, because I do think it's worth clarifying. So turbines do not increase probability of lightning strikes. And it is really important to note that turbines are grounded. So there is a grounding mechanism. So we know that fire that was started this summer, West Dalhousie, was a lightning strike to a tree. So I'm not saying that it doesn't reduce the probability of turbines getting struck, but they are grounded, and that's worth just noting for this group. And there are about 70,000 turbines in North America spinning to this day, worth noting. And Seamus, I will follow up on the visual sims because I do see that the email was sent on the 30th of May. So
Never received it.
and so that's something we can send through.
On the 29th. You thanked me for it and I followed up.
Well,
all right, that's fine, guys. So we've the email was sent. All right. All right, so good on the answers on that one. All right, we'll get to you, Marcus.
Sorry. Mark Keogh. I own a residence in Upper Vaughan, a cottage in Upper Vaughan, and a woods camp in Upper Vaughan. Before I begin, I just wanted to recognize the members that are here tonight, and thanks for coming. And just so you know, there's no drama later. I'm not turning my back to you. Okay, I just want to talk destruction. But for those that don't know, right now the Mi'kmaq are currently blocking Hunter's Mountain in Cape Breton. I respect their efforts, what they're doing, and it's because of well, their position is it's over commercialized and industrial abuse that's going on in that environment, and they're attempting to put an end to it to protect it. So I do respect that. It's kind of where some of us are coming from here tonight in our own community. So I just wanted to draw those parallels. I'm going to start off, and I don't mean to bore the counselors. I'm going to read a bit of policy, just because I want some of the other residents here to understand what we're talking about when we're talking about policy. And I'm going to start off with policy 4.244. And it shall be the policy of council to consider the development of permanent or long-term installations of large wind turbines or wind farms. And the key word there is consider. It does not say that council must approve development agreements if certain conditions are met. The conditions and the criteria are a list of things that must be met if you do approve it. So I just think there's a confusion with that. You know, a lot of I talk with different people. They feel like if they just go down the box and check off all the boxes that they can get a development agreement. And that's not always the case. If that was the case, it would be a permitted use in the general resource zone, not a non-permitted use. Because language does matter. 4.244 B. This one I brought up. So I should declare that as well. I'm also a committee member on the Planning and Heritage Committee, and I'm also a committee member for the Community Liaison Committee with Bear Wind Project as well. But this point I brought up during the PACAC committee. Our acting director said that they were just words and they didn't matter. It was a preamble to the actual juice of the definition, I guess, but I want to read it. It says adequate separation distances are maintained from adjacent land uses to minimize impacts of noise and shadow and to ensure public safety. But installations shall not be required to have separation distances from a dwelling that exceed greater than, and it goes on to talk about 4 times half the mill. But this definition speaks, the first sentence speaks directly to land uses. Adequate separation distance are maintained from adjacent land uses. If you go to page 61 of the land use bylaw, it lists the land uses that are permitted in the general resource zone. Some of those are agricultural support areas, agricultural uses, forestry and forest-related activities, seasonal dwellings, single or 2-unit dwellings. Well, it speaks to the single or 2-unit dwellings. But what is that distance for those other land uses? You know, what is it for it's 40 decibels for a dwelling, but what is the sound as you get closer to the project, the sound goes up, right? So there could be more shadow. And for public safety, that's the big one. What distance are you applying to that for public safety? Is it the same as the dwelling? You know, now we're getting back to property lines. And I know this was a long dispute. I know you guys all voted to expand that distance from a property line to 2 kilometers. So we're on the same page with this already, or you wouldn't have sent that through for a change. So I just want to know, like, I have a dwelling, you know, very close to the project at the top of a private property, you know, and I want that safety. And I don't want it to be over 40 decibels when you're that close to the project as well. So I think we need to address some of those other land uses. The other one I want to talk to you about is the setbacks that were listed for woods camps. Again, I did bring this up at the PACAC committee. Woods camps are dwellings. The new definition put through by John Lord did not speak to woods camps at all. He only listed dwellings. That distance that he is talking about there are various woods camps along that entire ridge. It should be not only for homes, permanent homes or cottages, but it should be wood scams. And in fact, during that time between when the proponent had dropped their original development agreement application and resubmitted another one, another woods camp was actually put up near the project area as well. And I don't know if any consideration has been given to these dwellings. So I do think we really should, before we give them approval to go ahead and you're going to start ruining people's lives that have dwellings up there next to the project zone, that those should be looked into. Another fun policy, 4.244, we're going to continue, speaks to the part B2A sound, 40 decibels. And I don't know if anybody knows what 40 decibels sounds like. It's basically the hum of a refrigerator. So that's kind of what that's the minimum we're going to get is a hum. If you're in your house, if you're in your yard that is closer, it could be greatly higher. So then section 2B speaks to shadow flicker, which cannot be more than 30 minutes a day. I'm gonna share a quick, I know you're pressed for time, but I'm gonna share a quick story with you. Last week, coming out from the camp, I had just loaded a beautiful black bear. I was finishing my grocery shopping for the winter, and I was by myself. And I was winded and I was proud of myself. I drug it up out of the woods. I had no friends that night to come and give me a hand. So I got it on the truck and I was heading out. I wasn't gone far and I thought I was having a stroke. The light started going dark, light. And I thought, holy cow, what's happening here? So I pulled over. And it's when I realized it's the new Benjamin Mills turbines that just went up. The sun was setting behind them and the shadow flicker was coming across the lakes and on the mountain I was on, and causing this light dark kind of pulsating with the light. So what it did though, I was relieved I wasn't having a stroke. But I got to thinking about it. If I'm going to get 30 minutes from Benjamin Mills from the west when it sets, and I'm going to get 30 minutes from Bear Lake on the east when it rises, where does the 30 minutes stop? And I know we talked about a cumulative effects, but this is a real time one that's happening right now. So if Benjamin Mills is chewing into the 30 minutes already, are they able to use what's left of that credit or can they exceed it? And I don't know where the bylaw does not stipulate the difference of that. It just says wind farms, you cannot do more than 30 minutes of shadow flicker, right? So we are being surrounded by wind farms. We also have South Canoe on the other side of us. So the residents are all spread around. This is a like I say, a real-time issue. I don't know how we're going to deal with that. And I think we should figure that out before any more towers start going up around us as well. The site approval plan, they passed it around here. Everyone has one in front of them. I really think we should hammer that out. I don't like the alternate location plan, and I get it, but I sit through a lot of PAC applications that come in, and we don't get a apartment building developer come in and say this is the property we want to build it on. We might put it here, but maybe we'll put it here. But we'll see what happens when we start with the backhoe. Maybe we'll put it over here. You should be hammering this out. They've been into every one of these sites and tested them and drilled them. They know what's there. So it would be a far fetch that they would need to move one. So I don't think we should leave that to the trust of the developer of where they decide during progress. They removed them, then they remove them. If something does happen that they have to change site, there should be a process where they come in and have to get approval for that. It shouldn't be part of the alternate site should just not be part of the original DA as far as I'm concerned. MPS policy 16.1.3, in considering development agreements and amendments to the West Hants land use bylaw, in addition to the criteria set in various policies of this strategy, council shall consider these are some of the criteria you are judging the project on. Whether the proposal is considered premature or inappropriate. Now, we've been told, I know planning has looked into this and they don't feel it's premature or inappropriate. But there are some issues in terms of the adequacy of fire protection and the energy emergency services. Fire protection, this needs to be looked at. I think Seamus did an excellent job of kind of letting you know the size of the fire that Dalhousie just went through. I mean, it's huge. We would lose our entire ridge with a wildfire like that. It would be gone. I know you asked one fire chief here in West Hants, and his response was fire suppression would be ideal, but it's not adequate or required because it's just not a box you have to check, right? And I really think we have to start learning from these fires like Hammond's Plains and West Dalhousie. You just can't keep going checking boxes and everything's hunky-dory. Like we have to start making changes, and some of those changes may be improved fires prevention in the woods, especially if you're industrializing the forest. So I think we're premature in making any decisions as far as that goes. And I'm going to tell you one more story, just because I'm sitting here. And back home, I have another woodlot back on the Bog Road. I got a phone call from a firefighter. I don't know, was it 2 weeks ago? A logging port, Marnus Basin logs on the lot next to me. I let them put a road through my property so they could access that lot. I got a call that while we were banned from the woods, they were allowed to continue. Their porter was on fire on the border of my property, and they did a great job. They got it out. But one thing that brought the light for me was there was no water source back there for them to fight this fire. They brought in their water when they arrived, but then they had to go. I think they might have had to go all the way back down off the mountain and access Ducks Unlimited Pond or something like that to try to get some water. But these water sources really should be built into the plans. If we're going to industrialize the forest, we should have some water up there to deal. No different than town with your dry hydrants. I mean, John Lohr, you guys got your lake blocked off, breaking fishery laws and stuff just in case there's a fire here. So you have water to fight a fire. Well, we should have water to fight a fire in the woods. And I don't want to beat up on our fire chief because they all do such a great job. But again, we asked the fire chief his opinion on this that has no experience fighting high structural.
Marcus, to bring in the question, but that's I'm going to cut you off there, right?
Yeah.
Our fire chiefs are very qualified. They're very well trained.
They don't have the resources, period.
Resources are one thing, but I'm not going to sit here and let you.
I'm not beating up on
one of
what
our
I'm saying.
chiefs, so
you're asking an opinion of someone that doesn't know.
Yeah,
what that would entail.
That may be your opinion. I'm not going to have the discussion with you, so we'll just move on to the next.
Yeah, very well.
Yep.
The next one is the pattern of development which the proposal creates. Planning had said, well, Southwest is already, South Canoe's already there, Benjamin Mills is already there. Why not have another one? So, but that's not a pattern. We have no control over South Canoe. That's not in our municipality. We have one in our municipality out there, Benjamin Mills. One is not a pattern. Two, adding this one is the start of a pattern. Upper Vaughan, Leominster, that whole area has experienced extreme growth in the last 2 decades. And all that private development and all those homes and communities that have been built out there has all been done on private investment and has increased a lot of tax revenue for this municipality. And if you allow a pattern, if we become a wind farm, it's basically what's happening to Upper Vaughan, especially if we're surrounded by wind farms, our wind turbines. that is greatly going to impact new home builds and land development in our area. And I think we should be protecting that. I'm not against the wind farm. I just think there's a couple, if you look at, there's a couple of bad turbines that are just a bit too close to the communities. It all can be pushed back. The land that they're using is absolutely enormous. I don't know if anyone's been up there to see the project size of the project area, but it is massive. A couple of these can be pushed back. I think there is room to negotiate and find a way, for them to move forward, but they don't. That's the other pattern you don't want to create, is you just don't want to have wind farms start just building turbines right on top of everybody's property all over the place, right? So we should set the precedent for that and not have a pattern of development start. And the last point on that one is the suitability of the area in terms of water course or wetlands and suitability of flooding. Now, the 70-some wetlands that they are destroying is absolutely unacceptable. I'm sure some of you have been hearing me preach about the abuse that the forest has taken up there from all the logging operations that's been happening up there. We are a general resource zone. Logging is a renewable resource. It's temporary. It does grow back. Yes, we have moved to a system where the fox is running the hen house, and they're West Forest submitting their own cut plans and everything, and just getting rubber stamped, and away we go. But the top of that mountain has been abused so bad and so aggressively, it has been cut off. The tree canopy is gone. It's caused the ground to dry out. All the scrub brush that they left behind, not only from that, but from the private. There's no spraying on the crown, but the private next door to us they do spray. It has created mountains of kiddling up there, and it is a dry problem. The Bear River or Bear Lake coming in and destroying 70-some wetlands. These areas are some of the only areas left up there that are retaining water on that mountain. And if you destroy those, well, they destroy them. They have to, I think it's 2-to-1. I think that's how it works. If they destroy a wetland, they have to replace 2 wetlands somewhere else. But they're not going to be in Upper Vaughan. They're not going to be where we need. We are the height of the land in the municipality here. Everything starts in Upper Vaughan. It either flows to Pontic or it flows to the Avon system, and then it all comes to town. And it was so dry when we had our floods before, and you've seen what happened. It washed out the river all the way to town. It went over the other direction and nearly blew St. Croix Dam out. People lost their lives. Removing the wetlands up there and not replacing them in that area is just not going to do any favors for flooding and our wetlands up there. And that's not even talking about the wildlife. I'm just talking about flood plans. Now, I know they have a stormwater management plan, but part of that plan should be maintaining those wetlands in in the mountain range. It's putting them in, I don't know, Yarmouth isn't going to help what's happening in our community. MPS policy 16.3 states a development agreement is a legal agreement between council and a property owner. I've asked this before. Is the province on this development agreement? And we are the public property owners. This is public property we're talking about, which is us. But my issue with this, we've had no consultation on this or nothing. Like, we haven't had the province come to us. I do know with the offshore, the Wind West project, they've talked to fishermen, some of the stakeholders with that. They've had consultation stuff and discussion. But we, for Crown land being leased out for private enterprise, it's public land. I just don't know why we haven't had any public consultation on that. DAs provide an opportunity for council to exercise a greater degree of control over the many aspects of a development proposal, such as use, design, which would be fire suppression again, architectural design. Maybe these are too large for our community. I know, Windsor doesn't want buildings, I don't know what it is, taller than 5 stories, right? Well, we don't either. Right? And these do not fit in our community architecturally whatsoever. We are basically a retirement area, a new home buyers area, and cottage country. We do not want to be a wind farm, and that's, and that leads to all the other issues that Seamus were spoken to with the depreciation of property. Other things you can look at are hours of operation. Maybe these things, if shadow flicker is a problem, maybe they only operate at night. That's up to you to decide. And other matters of concern to adjacent landowners, and there's certainly a long list of concerns from residents. Land. This one's relevant right now because I'm immersed in the hunting community right now. But land use restrictions on public property, so we can no longer hunt within 804 meters of these structures on public property. We're losing all of this land that has generations have hunted on. That's an issue. The deer wintering area. This is another issue. There is a
Marcus, these are all covered within the EA.
Yeah,
So it's outside the scope of what council considers the application. So
Right.
I know they're important to you. They're important to me personally, but we're going to try to keep it focused on areas of
They are important to me because the issue, Mr. Mayor, is the person that is approving the EA is the person that is leasing the property, and it just seems things have been scaled for their leasee. And I can tell you for a fact, if you read the environmental assessment, it's not worth the paper it's written on. They're just checking boxes. Anyway, there is no protection for the DWA. Rebecca said at one of the last meetings, blasting, yes, it scares the animals away, but she saw the moose come back in 2 years. She took a picture of one. I just thought that was so bonkers. Like, it's a protected wildlife area and we're okay with blasting them out of it. Anyway, fire and safety. I mean, that's another concern. It's been land and wetland destruction and industrializing our forest. I recently seen some aerial photos of Benjamin Mills. It looks like a city's being put in over there. We are losing our forest, and I'll leave it at that. Loss of land and housing starts. I mentioned that. Depreciation, that was covered. Well water. This is a huge one. Residents are seriously concerned about well water when this blasting starts. We unfortunately had to deal recently with uranium moratoriums being lifted and the province trying to muscle their way in on private property to do some exploration and that sort of thing. One thing that we did learn out of this is how much uranium travels. Now, the proponent is not responsible for anything outside of 800 meters of their blasting area. Well, this stuff, they are at the height of the land. Every aquifer and creek and tributary, it comes down from that mountain. If that, and I'm sure, and I think there are, if you read they found uranium when they did their core samples. I mean, there's no way they couldn't have. It's one of the hottest spots in Nova Scotia for uranium. So that is a huge, if our well waters are destroyed, that's forever. And there's no coming back from that. And this is a huge concern of our community. A lot of members in our community have, under their own expense, gone out and taken a baseline water test just so they have it because they're scared, right? But who's responsible for that? Now, everyone says they are out to 800 meters, but none of us are within 800 meters. So they're not going to have to pay out anything after that. If you approve this development agreement and that, there's wells destroyed in the process, or is the municipality going to help us with that? Like, that's a real concern of ours. I'm going to get out of here for you, but I just want to say, I think we need to learn from the past as well. And I'm specifically talking about the Windsor Causeway. If we could go back in time with what we know now, the Windsor Causeway is a great piece of ingenuity at the time. It solved, instead of having 100 little gates, we took them all out and put one in to maintain. It was brilliant. It really was. But we didn't know the environmental impacts it was going to have in the future and all the hardships it was going to bring, to our community and difficulties, environmental problems and all of that. I don't want to make the same mistake with this one. We just do not rubber stamp this. We can look at it, we can tweak it. We don't have to say yes to the project as it is. There is ways, I think, that everybody can work together and make it better. As it stands, I just don't think I'm asking you to support us residents and not support this project as it stands. I think it needs to be tooled a little bit more, pushed back. all the things we talked about, fire suppression, wetland destruction, all of that stuff can be addressed. I'm sure Chief Paul would be on board with that. He doesn't strike me as a man that's for destroying an environment in communities. I just want to be cautious, very cautious. We're talking about a company that hasn't made an ounce of green hydrogen. They're an international company. They have no bill of sale for it, even if they were to create some. And we're going to give up our entire forest. We're going to industrialize our entire forest for it. And we need to be extremely cautious with that. And if I could just ask, just common sense wise, just one more thing, is the plan is to put wind energy into the grid so they can take it out in Cape Breton and make hydrogen ammonia green because it's wind energy. Well, we already have windmills putting energy into the system. Common sense would say, well, why don't you try making some green hydrogen and selling it? You don't have to, if you have to ramp your production up, then put the windmills in and ramp it up. But they could make some at this point. They could make green hydrogen at this point and sell it. If you know, I know Tim Houston has.
It's not under consideration, the green hydrogen part tonight.
I know it's not,
So
but
we're just going to stick to the DA
but
itself, Marcus.
it's
I
their
know we've
plan.
given you a lot of leeway right here, so
I appreciate
it. All right.
I know it's the only chance we get to talk on this, right? So I want to talk about it. And I just think we're giving the keys to the kingdom away for unicorn farming. And we need to be cautious. That's all I'm saying. If we could go back in time with the Windsor Causeway, we would.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? Come on up, Sarah. We'll get you to state your name for the records.
Go again. Sarah Trass-Duggan. I won't take too long. I'm sort of learning more and more about this, but as of this summer, I'm formerly of Kings County, moved to Upper Vaughan 3 years ago. And coming from Kings County, where there's a lot of environmental protections in place, and moving to where I've moved, where I've had to fight uranium, I've seen windmills go up where my view is of the lake, where we built our dream home. And now I will soon, if this passes, be sandwiched between two wind farms. I pay a lot in taxes. I've wanted to raise my family there. I'm concerned about the wind, what my property value is. And I just wanted to share that I've, raised my kids reading the book, The Lorax, and I feel like we're living in it. So I'd really like to implore you to use common sense when you're making your decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? Come on up. Well, you know the routine by now. We'll get you to state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is John Kennedy, and I just wanted to come very simply. I learned a lot as well this evening and in the evenings that we've been coming for a very long time. I understand that we need green energy. I know we need to change our ways in terms of protecting the environment. But I just feel living out in Vaughan, I live on the Mint River itself. We've just recently been quite a lot of stress in our personal lives from the provincial government with the uranium mining. But the pressure from this wind farm has also been there. I see the Benjamin Mills one being constructed every day. And most of the turbines are in sight. And I'm just fearful, and that's all I can say simply. But I think I let you reflect the concerns and the attitude on a day-to-day basis of a lot of citizens out there, that we just feel like we're either being forgotten or we're being exploited or manipulated or used. And I just feel there's an anxiety out there that I don't think we should have to live with, that I don't think other citizens in the province and areas are living with. And I would just implore you to think about that in terms of, we have a town that doesn't want, as we were saying earlier, buildings more than 5 stories high or whatever the ruling is. Well, we would just like to be protected out there as well, and we're counting on you to represent the wishes and the will of the people in Vaughan area. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? We'll get you to state your name for the record there, Stephen.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stephen Hart. I'm from Lower Vaughan. I would like it if, Rebecca, could you bring up that map of the so while that's being brought up, has everybody seen the Benjamin Wills turbines from Windsor yet? So to put that into perspective, from Mike Olton's farm, that's about 10 kilometers to Benjamin Mills wind turbines. You see how huge they are being brought up. Has everybody seen the Benjamin Wills turbines from Windsor?
Get a
So to put
replay.
that into perspective,
Just a bit
from
of an
Mike
echo.
Olton's
You can just
farm,
mute that,
it's about
Vanessa,
10
there.
kilometers to Benjamin Mills wind turbines. You see how
Good. All right, I can continue there.
So that's about 10 kilometers from Mike Olton's farm. They're massive. You can see them from 10 kilometers away. When you look at the one farthest to the west, which is T1, that's about 1.5 kilometers from Roscoe Chandler's house. 1.5 kilometers, roughly. So even if that was 10 kilometers away, you can't tell me that that's not going to affect the poor old fella's property value. I could go on about a lot of other things tonight, but I think everybody else here has done a really good job and nobody probably wants to talk about it anymore. But that one there has really stuck with me for the last 3 years that we've been talking about this. Poor old Roscoe Chandler. 70-year-old man worked his whole life to build up a little bit of equity in his home, and it's going to be destroyed over one turbine or 15 or 12 or whatever it is today. So just think about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? Come on up, Linda. We'll get you to state your name for the record there. Oh, just click your mic on there, Linda. Sorry.
Oh, I'm here only to speak to the gated access portion, but it's been a significant concern in our community. We're one road in, one road out. Our community over the last 3 or 4 years has experienced multiple times when we've been blocked from being able to access or egress our community, from flooding, from downed power lines and snowstorm, all kinds of reasons. So we are grateful to Everwind in designing this map to allow us to use their site road to egress our community if there's an emergency. My concern is not just wildfire season. That's a big one right now. Everybody's talking about wildfire, but I'm talking about in the middle of winter when we need to get somebody out and that road is blocked. There's no other way other than using, search and rescue options. If they can come in through a site road and get people out, that's going to be faster and better, and it will save lives. So I'm not sure what the gate's purpose is. I've heard people talk about garbage. And many of you will not know, garbage for the Chalet Hamlet community has been an issue for as long as I've been around, 10, 12 years. People are dumping there constantly. We're working with the municipality to try and find the people who are doing the dumping. That's not always possible. Can't really imagine them driving 6 kilometers back to then dump on Crown land that's associated with this. So the real issue for us is safety. We want to have peace of mind that we can get out and that people can get in to save us if we have those emergencies. And if it's gated, we don't want to wait until somebody gets there with a key code. We may be the first ones experiencing it. And by the time the fire department gets there, we've already got a problem and people are lined up to get out the gate. If it's a couple of people in the community, what if they're not in the community, right? A gate may be possible and solve some of the problems, but we are absolutely against that gate being locked. It will prevent people from getting out safely. So Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? I'll give you 10 seconds.
Hey there, Stephen Hart again from Lower Vaughan. Something that I forgot to mention earlier is I know Councillor Smith can't be here tonight, but he had advised me before that when things go to the UARB, it costs about $20,000 to the municipality for the legal fees. So in Upper Vaughan, we did a fundraiser and we fundraised $25,000. So we will cover that if it does go that way. And I hope it does. That is all. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? We'll get you to state your name for the record there, Jason.
Jason Hart, resident of West Hants. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just to reiterate a few of the points that were made quite well tonight. But regarding the fires, Nova Scotia has proved in the last 3 years that it's getting drier. Our province has a hard time fighting these fires. And the average size of the wildfire now is about 10,000 hectares, 100 square kilometers. And if you start at the county line and come towards Windsor, that's 25 kilometers. So a strip 4 kilometers wide, all the way to Windsor. That's the average wildfire now. And a wind farm, certainly constructing it and operating it won't make that land less likely to catch fire. That's a lot of liability. I say put it on Premier Houston's desk. He likes overruling this council. Let him overrule you one more time. Plus, I think you're well aware the residents do not want this. The clear majority. Do them a favor, say no. Let Tim Houston take that responsibility. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? All right, council, I'll open it up to questions from councillors to the applicants. Does any councillor have a question to the applicant? Councillor Leary Pinch.
Thank you. So through you, Mayor. So you mentioned a geotechnical program and you mentioned the date of October 1st as potentially starting, but then in a further conversation, you suggested there was a short list that you were working on, which would lead me to believe that you haven't decided who is going to implement that program. And therefore the date of October 1st for commencement would be unlikely, given the fact that it's currently the 23rd.
So we have selected a geotechnical supplier, a company, an engineering company that does with rigs to do undertake the geotechnical program. The shortlist I was referring to was the construction contractor. So they're two different companies. And we'd like the final selection of our construction contractor to implement the geotechnical program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the commencement.
Early October.
Early October.
Yeah, commence in early October.
May I ask one more question,
Sure.
Mayor? Thank you, through you. We talked a lot about fire suppression, so I won't re-emphasize, I think, what the residents have already expressed. But I also have concerns through the construction phase, should this development agreement move forwards, about fire and what equipment you have on site in place and what the capacity is of the people who are there to deploy that equipment. So with Benjamin Mills during this fire risk season, they had 2 tankers that would meet a capacity greater than what the fire department actually has within that area as far as water on site, as well as a multitude of length of hoses and people who were trained to deploy them, so that should a fire ignite, because it was likely when you are working on the land, grubbing off the land, especially when there's drought, when it's dry, when there's all of these other risk factors, that you could start a small fire, such as was mentioned about the logging truck. And the people on site would have the capacity to at least hold or maintain that fire until emergency services could respond or extinguish it entirely. Is that something that will be in place during construction phase? I know we talked a lot about post-construction, but
Uh, we can. There was this summer, so both Benjamin Mills and I know a wind farm that's starting construction this year in the eastern part of the province had firefighters actually on site during certain activities, high risk activities, just simply because the summer we've had. If it's something that is warranted next summer, if it's a really wet summer, then maybe not, but it would be something that we would work with both the province on Crown land, the municipality. If there's any concerns, if we don't want a fire, it's our equipment, it's a cost to us. It slows down schedule having source. It's the last thing we want is a fire on site. So if conditions warranted, 100% we would have water and or emergency personnel on site.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Ivy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the information provided and the answers on the questions. The one question that I have goes back to, you'd made reference that you'd spoke with your insurance company. I think it was on the matter of fire and what could be done. And did they have any other guidance that was provided as part of that process? Now, in my question, I'll kind of take it where I'm heading is that to the comments made, and we've talked about this before, that the dryness that's taking over here, we've gone from flash flooding, which we've seen built in with some stormwater plans and the like, and now we've gone through drought conditions. We've seen horrific fires in the province and the significance of their size. And just having industrial equipment, in a forested area, carved out the way that it is, having people in that area has some potential to increase anytime we're out there, that any of us have the ability to be a trigger point for something like that. Any guidance provided in that regard from them on what you could or should or might do to mitigate that risk?
Yes, absolutely. And so we had questions from another jurisdiction in which, we have wind farm developments in, and, fire suppression was discussed there as well. Simply, the summer we've had. The team did quite a bit of research and, talking, if it was something that we believe and industry believe was warranted, we'd put it in. We gave a call to our insurance providers who are, have global experience with wind farms. And the suppression systems, I think it was even stated, it's a false sense of hope, false sense of security. There's other measures that are more, they're better at detecting and or preventing. I think prevention is the key word. The condition monitoring system is it's an operational term. It's like a software program that monitors with sensors that monitors every single part of the turbine. If there is, a signal will be sent in seconds after, the sensors detect any anomaly, and they'll be sent to a control center, and then we can get somebody out on site before it leads to a fire. Keeping the turbines well maintained, is, I think, one of our goals. I know there's been kind of experience in the community and seeing turbines that haven't been so well maintained, older turbines. So this condition monitoring system is something that we're committed to. And, we're discussing with operators right now who would support us in operating the facility in, pricing out the maintenance of those facilities and whatnot. We do not want a fire just as much, we'd be scared of fire just as much as everybody else here is scared of a fire. And construction is usually where, you may see a picture of a wind turbine on fire. It has happened. A lot of the older machines, it's happened more in older machines, right? The technology's come really far. It's an advanced, it's an advanced industry now. Some of the older 20, 25-year-old turbines didn't have the capabilities of the current turbines, but we're more than supportive to be overly cautious during construction, have the prevention techniques in operation to prevent but be ready in case something does happen.
Thank you very much. And so just my follow-up, if I could, in this regard, though, I guess my question, given what we've heard about this previously, that if it was in one of the nacelles or whether it started on the ground where the transformers are, or however it were to be there, is the ability to contain and to fight it. And as I look at the way the lay of the land here, which is, not looking at any other mass, but just this one, is the ability to contain and fight should a fire occur there. Because that is clearly it's a big topic within this community. It's probably what I'll say is to be the big sticking point of anything here, as well as others, size and so on. But just on the fire side, any comments from insurance on what you might do by way of containment and facilitated fighting? Because the water sources, at least as they show on the map, and I'm not that familiar with what exists out there, but the ability to facilitate the ease of fighting any fire that were to occur there.
No, it's an excellent point. I think we would be willing to make a commitment to work with the municipality on a plan for containment, working with generally before operations, we generally meet with the emergency services and come up with plans. And those are, in our operations and maintenance building and are to be followed. And then they're updated every 2 to 3 years or whatnot, depending on, turnover from staff. But I think we would be more than willing to, as a condition even to sit down with emergency services. And we do have in our operations, we do have training budget allowances, for new firefighters coming on and whatnot, and to, create a plan that is acceptable to the fire department.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Lurivich.
Thank you.
Councillor
Mayor.
Whedon.
So I appreciate that you've spoken with your insurance company, but their job, honestly, is to protect your liability from potential situations occurring. So have you heard from insurance providers who would be providing personal insurance to those people whose homes could potentially be affected? Should there be a fire? Should there be uranium in their well? All of the other potential possibilities that have been mentioned there this evening. Because your insurance company is going to look out for your best interest, right? And I am trying to make sure that the residents.
So it wasn't our insurance company. We actually got introduced to an advisor, like an insurance, they're a global brokerage that specializes in wind turbines. I'm sorry if I misspoke earlier. If, that's why I think this would be covered under environmental assessment, right? So for example, blasting, and any impacts. And that's why the environmental assessment process is, and I'm not the best person to speak to this process, but we have to monitor before and after. And I believe the last time we were here, we discussed, once we have our construction contractor in place and a clear firm, finalize all the exact kind of engineered routing that we could do, water testing before and after, like upstream and downstream of where we're actually doing any waterworks and in items like that. So we're not looking into, insurance for residents. We're trying to put in place the checks and balances to ensure that they don't need that.
Councillor Whedon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And first of all, I just want to thank the members of the public for coming up here and speaking tonight. It's not easy to come up and do that. So kudos to you. And thank you to Everwind for your flexibility so far with dealing with the public. There's lots of questions that I have, but I guess my main question is, what criteria did you use and why Vaughan? Why Vaughan to set this project up? Nova Scotia is vast. There's windmills all through the country, all through the province. But why did you choose this location in Vaughan? What was your criteria for picking Vaughan?
So Everwind was, this project was originally, like, it was a development project, the original 15 turbines. We've optimized the layout, but the layout is still similar. The project was purchased by Everwind from Member 2 and Nova Scotia Power. So Everwind purchased Nova Scotia Power's interest in the project. And, Member 2 is still a majority owner of the project. Everwind wanted to build its portfolio of wind. And in talking with Nova Scotia Power, they were willing to sell Everwind 2 projects, one in Colchester, one here in West Hants.
If I may follow up, how's the one in Colchester? Is that one up and running, or is that in development as well?
We have our municipal development permits for the 2 projects in Colchester and environmental approvals. And so they are on the same, pending an approval from West Hants. They would be on the similar timelines.
Thank you.
Councillor Morton.
I just have a couple quick questions. So the decibels I heard tonight were 40 decibels from so far away. How many decibels are at the base of the turbine?
That's we have to. So I don't know on the ground because you're 200 meters, but up at the nacelle, like if you were standing up right at the nacelle, the turbine is 112 decibels. We've put on serrated blades, which reduce noise coming from them by it's pretty standard now. Most of the turbines, you'll see the little edges on the blades. It reduces the noise by 1.5 dB. We are 100% compliant in the environmental assessment, the noise study assessment to camps, like hunt camps, to residences with both shadow flicker and noise.
Okay, and follow up on that is 800 meters you'll look after if somebody's well goes bad. Is there any consideration to going to 1.6 kilometers, which is double that, if proven that the water quality has changed?
Sorry, what was the first?
So
part of your
800
question?
meters or something?
Yeah.
Is what you guys would look after?
Mhm.
Can you double that if it's proven that the water quality of their well has changed since you blasted?
So should I let you environmental assessment? I'll just give the first part of the answer. So the 800 meters is what the province, through a pretty stringent process, feels that is kind of with buffer, the zone that's affected, plus buffer. If they believed that there would be impacts 5 kilometers out, then they would require us monitoring 5 kilometers. If there was demonstrated, we've talked about this internally. How do we demonstrate, that there's an impact? I guess, there'd have to be some type of criteria.
So if they took a water sample before you started and a water sample after, and there's quite a change, any consideration to helping them out?
I think we'd deal with that on a case by case basis, 100%. And I think that's a very fair statement. We wouldn't, walk away from any landowners, but deal with it on a case by case basis, which, generally what happens in construction and even in operations.
Councillor Larry Pinch.
One quick follow up. Thank you, Mayor. So based on what you just said, how would they prove that there was a change because of the blasting? So then how do the people within 800 meters prove that there's a change from the blasting? Because you said, what are the criteria? So what are the criteria? If you're going to cover it within 800 meters, what criteria are you measuring it against to pay for?
Hi there. I'm Jeff Benazza. I'm the Director of Environment and Permitting with Everwind. So as part of the blast monitoring plan, it would outline what is going to be collected, but per NSECC guidelines, we'd be measuring the wells within 800 meters prior to a blast for yield. So how much groundwater is uptaking in the well, and then for quality. So there would be a number of parameters that are measured, and part of our EA conditions require that we measure in particular for uranium and arsenic as well. So those two, among other metals and contaminants, would be measured prior to blasting. And if there were concerns with yield, hey, my well is dried up after, we could go back, reassess, and compare it to the background levels or the baseline levels.
May I ask follow up? Thank you. So you're going to test every well that's within 800 meters, or you're just going to go to a centralized location?
Every well within 800 meters of a blast will be measured if blasting is required.
Any other questions, council? Councillor Remy.
I have one, but I'm not sure. I apologize. I'm just not sure if this is the appropriate time to ask it or if we have an opportunity to ask staff because it's not necessarily, it's a discipline.
Right now, it's still public hearing, so we're asking questions of the applicant. And when public hearing is over, we can ask questions to staff at that point.
Cool. I'm good.
Any further questions, council? I just got one on the blasting and the testing of water. So just blast radius at 800 meters, all wells within that area. What about something outside of it that may happen as a result, but not within the 800 meters, that no longer in consideration? Or, well, no, just
I think we'd commit to deal with it on a case by case basis as opposed to, every within X meters beyond the requirements of the environmental assessment. Our contractors have communication plans. We have communication plans for, working with the community during construction and throughout operations. So it's not, if a member of the community believes that something is a result of our project, we're going to address it.
Okay. Councillor Remy?
Sorry, I do have one question for you.
Absolutely.
Just somebody had brought up, and I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people are aware because with the uranium mining and stuff like that. So what type of things are you looking for in people's wells or the water courses or whatever? Is it just like they're going dry, or because with the uranium, I mean, many of us were at the presentation in Vaughan, and so we all learned again, and I feel like somebody from the public had mentioned that about it traveling and those types of things, and just the location of this and the importance of monitoring those types of things. Is that something that you guys are considering with us as well? Or is it literally like, what are the things you're looking for in the well or monitoring or going to fix?
So was that specific to well monitoring? Pre-blast well monitoring?
Yeah, or just the watering, just the watering.
So in the pre-blast monitoring, as mentioned, we would be measuring for yield and water quality, which would include arsenic and uranium, so that you could compare pre-blast to post-blast to see, is there a spike in water quality issues or a reduction in yield? And then I guess just for generic water quality, we would have a program that our environmental inspectors would undertake during active construction. So for example, if we're installing a culvert, there's procedures to do that where you're doing it in the dry. So you have cofferdam set up, a pump around system, and you'd have monitors there during it to look for sedimentation issues and test for water quality there. For water quality sampling during active construction like that, you wouldn't need to go out to do baseline samples now, but you could collect background samples upstream to compare it to downstream water quality to ensure you're in compliance with Nova Scotia standards.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Also, Councillor Remy, I will take the questions to staff now too, because we are still in public hearing. So if any new information comes about from it, we can continue the discussion within this setting. So if you have a question to staff, let's do those now.
Cool.
If you remember.
I do.
Yep.
Yeah, I do. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I was expecting somebody else to go first. Mine is around, and forgive me, but just the decommissioning fund. Is that common for us to go 10 years in? And if I've read this wrong, please correct me. But from how I read it, it's like they're going to start creating the decommissioning fund at 5 years after the commercial operation to have it fully funded by the 10th year. So they aren't going to, like, what if something happens in between that time? And I know, like, during the public information meeting, there was some residents that brought that up and those types of things. But it's like, is it going to come back? The way I'm reading it, it sounds like it's going to come back on the municipality if that fund isn't set or if something happens before that time. It just seems it seems strange to me that we would wait until year 10 to develop a fund to decommission the site. Anyway, it just seems strange. It seems like a very long time to wait, seeing as we've seen with some of the other windmills, or even though something may seem like a very, very strong project. I mean, we've seen examples here with different developments that we thought were going to be, super duper and a sure thing, and then they weren't. So I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling with waiting till year 10 for that decommissioning fund to be established, but correct me if I'm reading it wrong.
Director Frazier.
Through you, Mayor. So appreciate the concerns around decommissioning funds. I know there's been a lot of questions around how this is function or how this functions. I will say this was drafted by our municipal solicitor with, in keeping in mind the least amount of risk to the municipality. It's also worth noting too, through the crown land leases, there's also requirements in there for decommissioning. So this is pretty standard type language around decommissioning and just gives the developer a bit of time to establish that fund, because you can imagine it's quite large. So basically when we require them to start kind of contributing to that fund and when we expect it to be fully
So I just want to make one comment on that then. Like I can appreciate that it's very, very large, but if they don't have it and it comes back on us, then that's a very large sum of money that the municipality has to come up with to decommission it. So that's why I guess I'm struggling, because I can understand, like I say, like giving them the opportunity to build it. But at the same token, it just seems strange that we would carry that risk. But that's just my question with that. And then the other thing that I did have that in there, it did say anyway, something along the lines of the development officer can make changes, or they can make changes to it. Forgive me because I did lose. DAs, it just says DAs often allow minor adjustments like small shifts for like wetlands or terrain or whatever, but the development officer, I'm so sorry that I'm struggling with my words right now, can allow new parcels of land or move where the turbines are. I'm struggling. So somebody else has a question?
2.2B is what you're referring to.
Thank you so much. It was written down here. So is that without, so they don't have to come to the public, so they can change. I guess I just want clarity on that. They can change where they're at without coming back to get public input.
So within the development agreement, there are a list of substantive matters, and those are things that would require them to come back to the through the public process. And that includes things like the uses permitted, the minimum setback requirements and separation distances, the requirement for stormwater management plans, and the secondary emergency access requirement. So this section in 2.2B just allows a little bit more flexibility if the wind turbine were to move maybe a meter one way or the other, as long as they continue to meet the site or the setbacks and the separation distances required in the development agreement. The development officer can still approve the permit that way. But any sort of major changes like adding extra turbines or completely moving the entire site plan around would be considered a substantive matter.
Okay, I just find it, because like I say, I mean, we have the site plan, right? And that's what we've put out to the public. There was definitely a resident that spoke to that, like, as far as what's there, but I think just moving the turbines, if that's what you're anticipating, you're looking at your backyard. If this goes through, you're looking at your backyard and it's like, okay, that one's going to be, I know where that's going to be. And then all of a sudden it switches without any consultation with the residents in that area. Like I'm struggling with that one. I'm struggling with that being able to just happen without public consultation.
I will, Mayor. This is a pretty standard thing written into development agreements. So even if we use an example of a multi-unit building, typically, we have the site plan and there's requirements for it to be in alignment, substantively with the site plan. As long as they're meeting their setbacks, things can kind of shift. We wouldn't really allow in this case for a wind turbine to move, a kilometer one way or the other. But if there's a small shift, a meter one way or the other based on, constructability issues that might arise, it just gives them flexibility without coming back through the entire process.
All right. And I certainly appreciate, sorry, through you, Chair. And I certainly appreciate that, but just the language doesn't read that way. It just makes it sound like they can just move them. So that's where I was struggling. Is like the way that I read it, they can just move them. Like it doesn't say they can move them a meter or they can move them 2 meters. It's just they can move them. So I was kind of struggling with that a bit. Thank you.
Councillor Leary Pinch, last time.
Through you to Acting Director Fougere. So on the 2.2B, it specifically states that the development officer may approve changes to the location of the equipment or other aspects of the site plan and inclusion of additional parcels of land in the property and or the crown land, provided that setbacks or separation distances listed, et cetera, et cetera. So that doesn't speak to me as to being like a meter. That suggests that there can be a large movement within that site plan based on the language. So is there a way to amend that language so that it is more specific as to what is actually allowable within that section?
Premier.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Language can be adjusted there to make it a bit more specific or to tighten anything up.
Thank you.
Rebecca.
Yep. And we are limited as well by our environmental assessment. So our environmental assessment is pretty strict on the location, and we cannot make any changes without going through additional field work in a new location, going back for an approval. And if they deem it substantive, then there's engagement, public consultation required. So it's a long process to make any changes to the project. Just while I'm speaking, I just wanted to let council know that our private landowner and the Crown do both require decommissioning as a part of our lease agreements. And those decommissioning funds will be established at year 5. And then we would have one with the Crown, and we'd, work with West Hants, our private landowner, whether, who holds it. So we don't have 3 funds going at the same time. We collectively, work with the municipality and the Crown to hold the bond in year 5.
Councillor Remy.
It's just in response to that then. Thank you. I appreciate that. But then shouldn't that language be changed in the?
Council can discuss that
Okay.
during its debate.
Apologies.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Seeing no other questions from anybody. Any further comments from you? Planner? or
Maybe
Ca-
just one more comment
Yep.
on the topic of the location and design. I also just want to point out 2.2A, which speaks to the design shall be consistent with the layouts of Schedule B. So that refers to the site plan. So in situations where a turbine may have to move slightly, all of these things will apply. So the substantive matters, 2.2A and B, and then all of the other requirements. So kind of combined together, it is very limiting on major changes or shifts of a turbine. And that's where we've added in that for alternate location piece, which allows for that a little bit more flexibility while kind of adding in certainty into the development agreement of where we would ultimately see wind turbines in that area.
All right. Okay, with council, with that, we will conclude the public hearing and we'll resume our regular meeting now. Again, I'll thank public for all of its comments. The applicant, thank you for answering all the questions as well. And thanks for the questions, council and staff, for answering those as well. So we are within our regular meeting now. We do have a couple of recommendations we'll put up on the screen just for information at this point. That's one of 2. All right, council, are there any further questions to staff at this point? Councillor Ivy.
This is the last chance for staff, correct?
Yep.
So just on the question that was asked about fire containment, in the event that something should occur within the purview of the area of the wind farm. So again, with the map, we don't need to bring it back up, but within that area where they're functioning or putting in the industrial equipment and so on, does the ability exist to work into the development agreement that that a fire containment and or a fire containment plan be put in place? In other words, after a fire is started for whatever reason within this area, does the ability exist to have that in as a requirement? They've said in their comments, and I'll try and get this, that they would look to work with local fire officials to see that something is in place, and whether that's perimeter fire break around the area or whatever it is. I'm not going to, try and troubleshoot that here, but is that something that has the ability to be built in as part of the agreement?
Through you, Mayor. So in section 2.7 of the development agreement, it does speak to requirements for the developer to consult with the fire chief that has jurisdiction in that area on the construction and the design of the facility. So there's sort of an expectation that there's ongoing conversations there. And then further to that, there is requirements for emergency response planning and emergency planning around, the case of an event of a fire or something to that nature. How they would address it and just working ongoing conversations with the fire chief in that. So it is built into the development agreement.
Thank you.
Councillor Bob Morton.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just back to the decommissioning thing, it just kind of struck me. Thankfully, it's from 10 years down to 5, but what happens if something happens to the proponent between years 1 and 5? And for some reason they're no longer there? Is that fully our responsibility to decommission if we had to in years 1 through 5, or do they slowly put money into this decommissioning fund up to year 5? How does that work? Should something ever happen?
Through you, Mayor. I'd have to familiarize myself again with the language specifically around that, but my understanding with decommissioning funds is it's something that they have to initiate, as per the terms of the development agreement, at the time when they start construction. And also, as mentioned by the applicant, there's other layers and there's other decommissioning funds that would sort of be triggered before it would even get to the municipality through the Crown land leases and the other leases with the properties owners out there. So the risk is very low from our municipal solicitor's perspective on that.
Okay, further questions? Councillor Ivy.
Last question on pattern of development, which I think is in 6.3.1, and I can't get to the subparagraph here quick enough, but if we can talk about that, because pattern of development is something that has come up previously. Point was made here regarding pattern development. I've leaned on that previously as well, relating to these sorts of agreements. And I guess if we go back to when this began, and I don't think I wasn't in West Hants when the first wind farms were going in. And I don't think you were either. But when does pattern of development start to take place? Because I would argue that, without turning this into an argument, but that the pattern of development there is as strong or stronger with current residential development, rural residential in a resource zone, if you might say. But what's the application of that, if I could ask, Director?
Through you, Mayor. So how we evaluate this specific criteria is we look at the designation and the zoning and what the intent of that designation and zoning is. And in this case, the MPS speaks to the resource designation and the resource zoning as having resource uses or resource type uses as the priority of that area. So that is the priority development within our policy that is supported. So when we evaluate the pattern of development in this specific case, it is consistent with resource type uses being the priority and that being supported in that area. Whereas, those residential and kind of supportive commercial uses are sort of secondary to that resource use.
Thank you.
Councillor Remy.
Last question for staff and just for a little bit of clear, actually it's 2 questions, so I apologize. One, the definition, and I am struggling a little bit that the camps that are out there, because I know my dad has a camp and he goes there, he's at his camp more often than he's at home. So for that being not known as a dwelling, like I'm struggling with the definition of that. So I'm just curious if you could point me to the right spot for that, because I know that it is within dwellings, right? So those seasonal, I would consider them seasonal homes, but the camps aren't counted for the setback stuff.
So wood camps are not considered dwellings. Dwellings are considered to be permanent residence, and we base these definitions off of the MGA and other sort of best practices. So if it's not a full-time permanent residence, then it wouldn't be considered a dwelling.
Awesome. And then my only other question through Mayor, just one quick question. In here, I don't know where we are, for 244B, maybe. That's when they talk about the flicker and that it's only 30 minutes. And the resident, I believe it was, thank you, Resident Kehoe brought that up, that it says 30 minutes flicker, I think, or 30 minutes per day. But when we're doing that is like, we're taking into account one windmill. And if that place, there's two, like, where is this 30 minutes coming from? And if we have two different wind farms and they're coming from two different directions, then all of a sudden that number is increasing. You know what I mean? Like, so then all of a sudden, anyway, I am struggling with that as well. Because if we're saying that that's where it's okay, or that's our limit according to this policy, but then all of a sudden it's doubling, then where is our line with that?
Through you, Mayor. So this specific one, it's not something that staff at the municipality measure. So we look to the environmental assessment and see if it met those requirements, because those are requirements directly out of that. And I believe it's based on the project. So they wouldn't consider other wind farms in the area, but they would consider the project as a whole.
Okay. So it's just each individual project then. Awesome. Thanks.
Further questions to staff, council? All right, with that, thanks, Director Fogier. We do have a recommendation up on the screen. If council wishes to make that or something different or not, we'll take that direction now.
I'll make the recommendation.
Deputy Mayor.
The council gives second reading to consider entering into a development agreement to allow a wind farm on PIDs 453-99540, 453-99573, 453-81217, 453-81209, 453-99532, 450-60068, and 450-60076, which is substantially the same as the draft set out in Attachment A as this council report filed number 25-18B dated September 23rd, 2025, and further amended to require that the egress road be gated.
Motion made by Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder?
I'll second for discussion.
Seconded by Councillor Ivey. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Leary Pinch.
Thank you. So I think we heard that there is people on both sides of whether they feel the gate, should exist or should be locked or not locked. I just wanted to make a couple of points on some research that I've done recently. So there is expert opinion, which is in this case the best you're going to get, because nobody specifically is doing research on traffic flow through a secondary egress road, especially since these are things that are newer into development and development agreements in the current times. But there is expert opinion on both sides. And so the facts for locking a gate are management and evacuation settings, a controlled plan, ensuring that people are safe as they evacuate and that the services are there to ensure that that's done appropriately. Not that residents can or cannot do that on their own, but there has been past precedent in previous emergency situations of a large scale where evacuations have occurred that becomes an issue if there's not management there to assist the flow. Also, it can, as some residents have described, it could potentially bottleneck because there have been other issues, given that Woods Road as well, that, prevent people from efficiently getting to that area of the gate. I did also have residents, I think, as they expressed here, reach out to me about waste dumping concerns, about traffic flow through that area, regular traffic flow, and concerns about if a incident occurs because someone is using the access to that road, then that falls back on emergency response to respond to that concern and what issues that could potentially cause, and also some concerns about theft and that providing an access for somebody to easily kind of get around a generally developed area out onto a highway, because it is Highway 14, and continuing on their way. So I think that when council initially put this in, it was in the interest of public protection. There is recent precedent. HRM Council in two new developments in March of this year put two secondary egress roads per development, larger scale development, that would be comparable, and a neighboring municipality. And they did gate both of those roads to restrict public access so that it was for emergency personnel only. But I would be remiss if I didn't also speak to the fact that the residents in the hamlet, from those who have reached out to me, are looking for peace of mind and the feeling of safety, knowing that they have the opportunity to exit through another egress if they feel that their safety is in jeopardy. So I don't know. We have stated only gated, which doesn't necessarily state whether it has to be locked or not locked. So I'm just hoping that that potentially leaves the opportunity there to find an alternative solution to ensuring that residents would be able to access that gate and have that peace of mind and security, because that does factor in, from my perspective, to a piece of the pie. It's part of what the residents were looking for and a benefit that they were hoping for, in consideration of all the other concerns they have with the development. So I just wanted to put that out there for council consideration.
Thank you very much. Further discussion, council? Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess just a couple of points here. Councillor Larry Pinch has spoken well to the gated emergency access point, which was a point that was raised as part of the Planning Advisory Committee discussion, one of the few points. But I think it's just worth highlighting that that was one of them. The other was questions on fire suppression, which we've heard about this evening, we've heard about previously. And then this evening, coming in with discussion or comments about containment in the event of, so that there's something being put in place. And I think the director has spoken to that. I would encourage, regardless of how this goes, that to the comments from the proponent here, that something be looked at in that regard, because what we've seen this summer and in previous summers is that fear, that threat of fire is real. It's probably increasing. When we saw this summer having ash and smoke permeating into our community, and as we watched that it was, very real. And that, so anything to quell or to subdue the anxiety that would exist with that, I think would be a good thing. The vibrancy fund is something that they've agreed to, and whether the community park is part of that or not, I think is still up, but that's for the CLC, I guess, to deal with. And then the other part on well water, which I've spoken about. So the point that I want to go to is my last question, which I put forward there, is on pattern of development. And I appreciate the comments of the residents here. I think it was really good as a reminder, even though this has been a long process and there's been a lot of changes made and taken place to date. But that pattern of development for me is not so much what we look at when we look at a planning document and what the definition of an area might be for, but it's what's on the ground there already, what's been allowed to develop, what is there. And for me, we have supported and endorsed the development of that area, which was once initially purely cottage for weekenders to come in, but now it's full-time year-round homes. It's people that are living there, and to their comments, are no different than we see here, and having 200-meter towers of industrial equipment sitting up over them. And we have similar things here. We're starting to see development and growth in this area now, where we're seeing the request for high rises and taller buildings. And so really no different. And very conscious of the fact that the pattern of development here within the town has historically been 3 stories. The pattern of development out there in Vaughan has been primarily 1 level, 1.5 level homes, cottages, whatever you will, until we started putting the wind farms in. And so for me, pattern of development, this is changing. Continue to put in more of those. We'll continue to ensure that does become the solid, steady pattern of development if we don't speak to it. So that's my comment on it, or my point on it, and open to any other comments as well.
Councillor Leary Pinch.
Thank you. So through you, Mayor, just as a follow-up to Councillor Ivy's point as well about fire suppression, it just kind of rings through to me that the loss of a turbine for any company is a loss of revenue, a loss of power. But for the people who live around that turbine, that is a loss of everything. That's a loss of their memories. That's a loss of their property. That's a loss of the place that where they feel peace, where they go to, you know, be with their thoughts, to be with themselves, to spend time with family, and it's all gone just that quickly. So though I understand that fire suppression systems don't yet have research that validates their effectiveness, I find it difficult to swallow that just putting them in to provide that sense of reassurance to the community is something that's not even been sought out or negotiated, regardless of the amount of times that it has been discussed around this table and brought up by residents. So it just kind of doesn't, you know, necessarily project a want to provide that peace of mind. And I think that that is also important because when these residents moved out to this area, they moved out knowing it was cottage country. They moved out knowing there were private developments, but they didn't move out there, or they haven't lived there for generations with the assumption that it was going to become industrialized and that the forest would become steel. So I think in a way, unintentionally, allowing that pattern of development, perhaps while the documents suggested otherwise previously, misled those individuals into assuming that they would always live in that natural habitat that we are now, you know, going back to the documents, but we've kind of traveled down a certain path already, and there's no roundabout to get us back.
Further discussion? So just reminding council, fire containment plan was raised earlier and decommissioning fund was raised earlier. If anybody wishes to bring those up now, Councillor Bob Morton.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Not a whole lot to add to the conversation, other than I certainly appreciate the comments from the public. I came in here with a page of questions, and they asked well, better questions than I could have dreamed of. So it was great to hear from them, from my colleagues here, their questions as well. Very, very warranted questions, and helps with my decision. I think we know where I stand anyway. However, I feel I have to say that. So thank you to the residents for coming in, for speaking. Thank you to my colleagues for speaking as well.
Councillor Remy.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up the decommissioning again, because I think that the wording around that should be changed. It was agreed. I apologize that I'm still learning this process, so forgive me and thank you for that reminder.
So we have a motion made. It's been seconded. If you want to amend the motion to add that language in.
Yes,
that
that's
would
what
be,
I am looking
that'd be,
to
yeah,
do.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off, sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So yeah, I would like the language to change so that that isn't starting in year 10. So it's starting in year 5 or completed in year 5. Sorry, I didn't write it down, so I apologize. I thought I finished my notes already.
So you can make an amendment so the motion as read, adding the decommissioning fund being fully funded by year 5.
Yes.
As your amended motion.
Mhm.
Okay. Motion's been amended. Is there seconder to the amendment?
Second.
Okay, Leary Pinch seconded. So council, the motion now being considered is that council gives second reading, consider entering into a development agreement to allow a wind farm on PIDs 453995540, 453995573, 453812117, 453812009, 453995532, 450600068, and 450600076, which is standing the same as the draft set out in attachment A, as council report filed W25-18B dated September 23rd, 2025, and further amended to require the egress road be gated, as well as decommissioning fund established by year 5. That is the motion being considered now. But as the amended, yeah. So any questions on the amendment?
Was it to be established by year 5 or to be fully funded by year 5?
Fully funded, that's
I just want to be clear what's
fully
our intended.
funded.
Okay, thank you.
So any more discussion on the amendment? Nothing? All right, so we're going to put it to a vote of hands. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Just as the amendment right now. Opposed? Motion is passed. So that is the amended motion now, council, under consideration. Any further discussion on the motion as amended now? All right, seeing. I can take another comment.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
have another comment. I apologize, but I do have concerns as well as only being responsible for 800 meters around the outside of the development, mostly because of the way that that development is. And I mean, it's been mentioned lots of times that all of our water courses come from up there. So for the responsibility only being for 800 meters, again, I'm really struggling with that because it does affect a lot more places outside of that just because of the way the slopes are. I'm not a person who knows that proper terminology. But anyway, I'm concerned with that. 800 meters seems very small.
Okay.
Very short distance.
Thank you very much. Oh, is there? Okay. All right. We're good. All right. We're going to put it to a vote. So the motion that we're voting on is that council gives second reading, consider entering into a development agreement to allow wind farm PID 453995540, 453995573, 453812117, 453812009, 453995532, 45060068, 45060076, which is substantially the same as draft set out in attachment A as this council report file 25-18B dated September 23rd, 2025, and further amended to require that the egress road be gated and decommissioning fund be established by year 5. Council. All those in favor signify by hands up. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. So we are at a tie vote. Opposed is Councillor Ivey, Councillor Leary Pinch, Councillor Bob Moran, Councillor Paul Whedon, Councillor Crystal Remy. Motion is defeated. All right, so second motion becomes null and void at this point. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, council, for the debate. Thank you, public, for your comments and your information. And thank you, applicant, for answering the questions as well. Council, we are at 8:45 time-wise. We're going to take a 15-minute break. I know presenters and other people here for other items, but I think we need a 15-minute break at this point.